When you begin to truly grasp the depth of identity in Christ, everything around you starts to shift in ways that can't always be explained logically, but are felt deeply within the soul. For so long, people are conditioned to believe that their identity is wrapped up in what others say about them, in the titles they carry, in the achievements they stack up, or even in the failures they try to bury. The world shouts a narrative that your worth is determined by comparison, by competition, by whether you look good enough, sound smart enough, or perform well enough. And for many, that becomes a never-ending cycle of striving without fulfillment, chasing recognition but never really feeling whole. Yet when the revelation comes that your identity is not anchored in fleeting opinions, but in the eternal truth of Christ alone, something begins to break open inside. You realize that the labels of the world are nothing more than shadows when compared to the light of who you are in Him. It is not about striving to become worthy. It is about recognizing that you are already made worthy through Christ. This identity is not fragile. It is unshakable. It cannot be altered by the criticism of others or diminished by your past mistakes. It does not fade when circumstances shift or when storms arise. The power of knowing your true identity in Christ is that it establishes you on a foundation that nothing external can crack. Think about it: the storms of life will always come, but the person who is rooted in Christ is like a tree planted by streams of living water. Even when drought comes, even when winds howl, that tree does not wither because its source is deeper than the surface. And that is what it means to live from your true identity, to be unmovable because your roots are no longer entangled in shallow soil, but in the eternal ground of His truth. Most people live life reacting to the opinions of others. If someone praises them, they feel valuable. If someone criticizes them, they feel crushed. That roller coaster of emotions can drain a person's energy and rob them of peace. But when you know your identity in Christ, you no longer need validation from the outside. You understand that you are already complete, already accepted, already loved. That shift in awareness is liberating because it releases you from the burden of always trying to prove yourself. You stop asking the question, "Am I enough?" and start declaring with confidence, "In Him, I am more than enough." That confidence is not arrogance, it is alignment with truth. This is where real transformation begins. When you identify with Christ, you begin to think differently, and thinking differently is the seed of living differently. As a person thinks, so they become. If you think you are limited, you live limited. If you think you are unworthy, you walk with your head down. But when you think in alignment with Christ, when you accept that His Spirit dwells in you, when you embrace that His strength is your strength, your posture changes, your decisions shift, and your presence carries a different energy. It is not about pretending or trying to appear confident. It is about living from the reality that your identity is already secure in Him. Even when doubts come knocking at the door, even when people try to pull you back into the mindset of inadequacy, your awareness of identity in Christ becomes a shield. Those words that once pierced your soul lose their sting. Those fears that once paralyzed you lose their power. You stop seeing yourself through the lens of weakness and begin to view yourself through the lens of divine potential. This is not about ignoring your humanity. It is about realizing that your humanity is fused with divinity when you are in Christ. It is no longer just you trying to make things happen. It is Him living through you, expressing through you, shining through you. That is identity on a higher dimension. There is a quiet strength that comes from identity in Christ. It is not loud. It is not boastful. It is not driven by the need to impress. It is steady. It is sure. It is grounded. It's the kind of strength that doesn't crumble when the spotlight is gone, the applause fades, or the doors seem to close. Because identity rooted in Christ does not depend on external circumstances. It allows you to remain constant in a world that is constantly shifting. When others bend under pressure, you can stand. When others lose hope, you can still see possibility. When others give up, you can move forward, not because you are stronger in yourself, but because your strength flows from a source that never runs dry. And in this awareness, something even greater happens. You stop living small. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into boxes that others create for you. You stop apologizing for the light that shines from within you. When you know who you are in Christ, you realize you are meant to reflect His greatness, not suppress it. You are meant to walk in authority, not in timidity. You are meant to create, to expand, to live with purpose, because that is the essence of His life within you. No one can take that from you. No system, no institution, no negative opinion can rewrite what has already been written about you in eternity. This realization turns ordinary living into extraordinary living, because you no longer see yourself as separate from divine purpose. Every step you take, every decision you make, every challenge you face is filtered through the awareness that you are not walking alone. You are walking in Christ. That is where true confidence is born. That is where unshakable peace resides. That is where limitless potential begins to manifest, because you finally understand that the life you live is not just your own, but His life expressed fully through you. Faith is often misunderstood as something passive, as if it were just a thought in the mind or a vague hope that things might work out someday. But real faith is alive, active, and powerful. It is not just saying you believe, it is stepping out and acting on that belief, even when the evidence around you doesn't yet confirm it. Faith is not built on what your eyes can see. It is built on trust in the unseen, the eternal, the promises that have already been spoken over your life. When faith becomes the engine that drives you, your life stops being directed by fear, doubt, or the shifting opinions of the crowd. Instead, you begin to move forward with a conviction that something greater is guiding you, and that conviction produces transformation at the deepest level. When you walk by faith, you start to understand that you do not need the full picture before you take the first step. Most people wait for certainty, for guarantees, for the entire plan to unfold before they dare to move. But faith operates differently. It invites you to step into the unknown with confidence, knowing that the path will unfold as you move. It is like walking in darkness with a lamp that only illuminates a few steps ahead. You don't see the whole road, but you trust that as you keep moving, the light will reveal what you need in its time. That is why faith is so transformative. It shifts you from paralysis into motion, from hesitation into progress, from fear into freedom. Faith is also a choice, and that choice is made daily. It's easy to have faith when everything looks secure, when the bank account is full, when the relationships are strong, when the opportunities are abundant. But true faith reveals its strength in moments of uncertainty, in times of challenge, in seasons where the evidence seems to contradict the promise. That is, when faith becomes a force that lifts you higher. It whispers to you that even though the situation looks impossible, there is a greater reality at work. It tells you that even when doors seem closed, another is being prepared. It teaches you to lean not on your own understanding, but to trust in the higher wisdom that sees the end from the beginning. Faith is never about passivity, it always leads to action. Believing without action is nothing more than wishful thinking. Faith compels you to act as though the answer is already here. It pushes you to prepare for the very thing you are trusting for, even before it arrives. If you are believing for a new opportunity, faith asks you to prepare yourself, to sharpen your skills, to ready your mind. If you are believing for healing, faith pushes you to align your habits and your thoughts with health and vitality. If you are trusting for provision, faith compels you to sow, to give, to move in generosity, because you understand that provision flows through obedience and alignment. Faith is not waiting, it is participating with what has already been promised. There is also a boldness that rises when faith becomes the engine of your life. It removes the fear of failure because you no longer measure success by outcomes alone, but by obedience to what you know within. Even if the world sees a setback, faith interprets it as a stepping stone. Even if circumstances look bleak, faith perceives them as temporary. And this mindset makes you unstoppable because you are no longer held hostage by appearances. You stop living in the prison of, "What if it doesn't work?" And instead you begin to live in the power of, "What if it does?" That shift in focus ignites creativity, courage, and resilience that others can't always understand, but that becomes evident in the way you keep rising despite the odds. Another thing about faith is that it multiplies when exercised. Just as muscles grow stronger with use, faith grows more powerful when you act on it. The more you trust, the more you see doors open. The more you step out, the more you experience breakthroughs. Each time you witness even a small result of faith in action, your confidence deepens, and your capacity to believe expands. What once seemed impossible begins to feel inevitable, not because the challenges shrink, but because your inner vision grows. Faith is cumulative. The more you use it, the more it shapes you into someone unrecognizable from who you once were. Faith also reshapes how you interpret challenges. Instead of viewing obstacles as signs to quit, you begin to see them as opportunities to prove the strength of your belief. You realize that mountains are not barriers, but invitations to climb higher. Valleys are not punishments, but places where your roots go deeper. Storms are not sent to destroy you, but to reveal the anchor within you. This perspective allows you to face challenges with a different spirit, one that does not complain or collapse, but rises with determination and resolve. When faith becomes the engine of your life, you live from a higher frequency. Your energy shifts because you are no longer drained by worry or consumed by doubt. You begin to carry yourself with an assurance that radiates to others. People may not understand it, but they feel it. They see the calm in your eyes, the steadiness in your steps, the certainty in your words. And often, without realizing it, you become a source of inspiration to others, showing them what it looks like to walk in alignment with a deeper truth. This kind of faith is contagious. It spreads wherever it is lived authentically. When others witness someone who chooses faith over fear, action over hesitation, trust over doubt, it awakens something within them. It reminds them of the power they also carry when they connect to a higher reality. Faith is not just personal. It creates ripples that can transform families, communities, and generations because it shifts the atmosphere everywhere it is present. And the more it is lived out, the more it becomes evident that in Christ alone, faith is not just a belief system, but the very engine that transforms ordinary lives into extraordinary ones. Fear is one of the most powerful forces that holds people back, and it often disguises itself in subtle ways. Sometimes it looks like hesitation, sometimes it feels like insecurity, and other times it shows up as procrastination or self-doubt. It whispers lies into the mind that you are not capable, that you are not ready, that you might fail, that others will laugh, or that circumstances are stacked against you. And when fear is allowed to govern the decisions of life, it creates limitation, because every step becomes smaller, every dream becomes more distant, and every opportunity slips away. Yet, when a person discovers what it means to be anchored in Christ, fear begins to lose its grip. Suddenly, you realize that the force which once dictated your choices no longer has authority over you. What once paralyzed you becomes powerless in the light of the truth that greater is the one within you than anything you face in the world. The interesting thing about fear is that it feeds on imagination. It builds pictures of worst-case scenarios, projecting failure before you even try, magnifying obstacles until they look insurmountable. But faith in Christ rewires the imagination. Instead of envisioning defeat, you begin to envision victory. Instead of magnifying the problem, you magnify the power of the one who dwells within you. Fear thrives in uncertainty, but Christ-centered confidence thrives in trust, in the assurance that no matter how unclear the future seems, you are never stepping into it alone. This awareness begins to dissolve fear, because fear cannot coexist with perfect love, and the love of Christ casts out fear like light dispels darkness. Breaking free from fear is not about denying that challenges exist. It is about seeing those challenges through a higher perspective. It is not that danger vanishes, but the overwhelming sense of powerlessness fades, because you understand that you are not limited to your own strength. Fear thrives on the belief that you are weak, that you are alone, that you are without resources. But when you know that Christ is your strength, that His power flows through you, that His wisdom guides you, you realize that limitation was nothing more than an illusion. It was a mental cage, a prison of thought, and the moment you step into awareness of who you are in Him, the locks break open. This transformation shows itself in practical ways. The person who once avoided opportunities begins to take bold steps. The one who once kept silent out of fear of rejection begins to speak with courage. The one who once allowed anxiety to dictate their choices begins to move with peace. It is not that life suddenly becomes easier. It is that the presence of fear no longer determines the path forward. When fear says, "You can't," the voice of faith in Christ says, "You already can." When fear says, "There isn't enough," the truth says. When fear says, "You are alone," the Spirit within affirms, "I will never leave you nor forsake you." A fear also as a way of shrinking potential. It convinces people to play small, to settle for less, to stay in comfort zones rather than step into expansion. Many dreams are buried not because they were impossible, but because fear convinced someone that trying was too risky. Anchoring yourself in Christ removes the illusion of limitation because you begin to see yourself not as a fragile being subject to chance, but as a vessel of divine possibility. You stop measuring your ability based on past failures or present resources and start measuring it by the greatness of the one who empowers you. This shift is monumental because suddenly the size of the obstacle no longer intimidates you. You stop asking, "Can I do this?" and begin affirming, "Through him, I already carry the ability to do this." The freedom from fear also brings a sense of clarity. Fear clouds vision. It distorts perception, making problems look bigger and solutions smaller. But when fear is silenced, clarity emerges. You begin to see opportunities that were hidden, to notice solutions that were overlooked, to perceive open doors where before you only saw walls. Fear blinds, but faith in Christ restores sight. And with sight restored, you can make decisions that are not driven by panic, but by wisdom, by discernment, by inner assurance. There is also an incredible joy that comes when fear loses its grip. Living under fear is heavy, it drains energy, it creates constant tension within. But breaking free from fear brings lightness. It brings freedom. It allows creativity to flow again. It awakens passion and boldness. People notice the change. They see a confidence that cannot be explained by circumstances alone, a peace that doesn't make sense to the natural mind, a strength that shines even in moments of weakness. That presence becomes magnetic because others are drawn to the freedom they secretly desire for themselves. Fear always tries to tell you that you are limited, but when you live anchored in Christ, you realize that limitation is an illusion. It is not that you deny boundaries, it is that you recognize you are connected to the limitless. You are no longer operating solely from your own strength, but from the one who created the heavens and the earth. That realization gives you courage to attempt what once seemed impossible, to walk through doors that once terrified you, to take risks that once paralyzed you. And each time you step forward in spite of fear, its hold weakens, and your awareness of power grows stronger. It is a process of rewiring the mind, of training the heart to lean on truth rather than lies, of continually choosing to believe that fear has no ultimate authority over you. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes, until eventually what once terrified you becomes the very thing that propels you into purpose. Fear will always try to whisper, but its whispers no longer dictate your destiny when your soul is anchored in the unshakable foundation of Christ. There is a place deep within the human spirit that longs for peace. Yet, so many people search for it in all the wrong places. They look for it in achievements, believing that once they reach a certain level of success, they will finally feel complete. They look for it in possessions, thinking that when they own enough, the emptiness will fade. They look for it in relationships, expecting another person to fill the void that only something greater can fill. And while these pursuits may bring temporary satisfaction, they rarely produce lasting peace, because peace cannot be manufactured by external circumstances. True peace, the kind that steadies the heart in the middle of storms, the kind that brings clarity when confusion surrounds, is found in Christ alone. It is a peace that is not dependent on what is happening around you, but is anchored in who resides within you. This inner peace becomes a fortress in times of chaos. The world is filled with noise, with constant demands, pressures, and uncertainties that easily weigh on the mind. People carry silent battles, worries about the future, concerns about finances, fears about health, doubts about their own worth. These inner struggles can keep a person awake at night, rob them of joy, and cloud their judgment. Yet when you understand that in Christ there is a calm that surpasses human understanding, you begin to experience a strength that doesn't waver even when everything around you seems unstable. It is not the absence of problems, but the presence of His peace that makes the difference. Strength and peace are interconnected. When you live in peace, you carry strength that others cannot quite explain. Anxiety weakens, it drains energy and clouds focus. Fear diminishes courage. Worry steals clarity. But peace empowers. It keeps your mind sharp, your heart steady, your decisions wise. This is why people who cultivate peace in Christ can walk into storms and still stand tall. Their strength is not rooted in bravado, but in stillness, in the certainty that they are supported by a power beyond themselves. They know that battles are not won by frantic striving, but by anchored faith, by steady endurance, by the calm assurance that the outcome is already secured. When you surrender to Christ, something remarkable happens. The weight that you were never meant to carry begins to lift. The pressure to control everything fades because you realize that you are not in this journey alone. Instead of trying to force outcomes, you learn to trust the process. Instead of being consumed by what you cannot change, you focus on what you can. Your attitude, your faith, your obedience, your perspective. And in that surrender, peace flows like a river. That peace becomes your hidden strength. Others may crumble under the same pressure, but you stand because your foundation is unshakable. Others may panic when storms rise, but you remain calm because you know that storms cannot last forever, and the one who is in you has authority over every storm. This kind of peace also transforms how you respond to people. Without peace, it is easy to react out of anger, frustration, or fear. But with peace, you begin to operate with patience, with compassion, with understanding. Peace changes your tone, it shifts your posture, it influences the energy you bring into a room. It turns conflict into opportunity for reconciliation. It turns tension into space for grace. It turns misunderstandings into moments of growth. And this is why true peace is not passive. It is powerful. It disarms hostility and brings light into situations that would otherwise be consumed by darkness. There is also a resilience that peace brings. Life will always bring moments of loss, disappointment, and hardship. Without peace, those moments can crush the spirit. But with peace, those same moments become places where strength is refined. You no longer see hardship as the end, but as part of a greater unfolding. You learn to endure not with bitterness, but with hope, not with despair, but with quiet confidence. That inner resilience allows you to rise after every fall, to rebuild after every setback, to keep moving when others give up. It is the quiet strength that says, "This may hurt, but it will not destroy me. This may challenge me, but it will not define me. I am anchored in something greater than this storm." Peace also gives you the ability to hear clearly. In the noise of worry and fear, it is difficult to recognize direction. The mind races, the heart pounds, and confusion clouds discernment. But in stillness, in the calm of Christ's peace, guidance becomes clearer. You begin to sense the right path, the right decision, the right timing. You recognize opportunities that would have been hidden if your mind was cluttered. Peace creates the environment for wisdom to flow, and wisdom strengthens you to act with confidence. And beyond all this, peace in Christ provides joy that is not dependent on circumstances. While the world chases happiness in temporary pleasures, this joy flows steadily, like a stream that never dries up. It comes from knowing that no matter what happens externally, nothing can take away the presence of the one who lives within you. That assurance becomes your anchor. It becomes the reason you smile even in difficulty, the reason you keep going even when others quit, the reason you radiate strength even when you should feel weak. Peace is not just a feeling, it is a power that sustains, uplifts, and transforms every area of life when rooted in Christ alone. In a world that constantly measures success by material gain, it is easy to get caught in the cycle of chasing more money, more recognition, more possessions, more achievements. People are conditioned to believe that the accumulation of things will bring fulfillment, that once they reach a certain financial milestone or social status, life will finally feel complete. But the truth is, material success without purpose leaves a person feeling empty, no matter how much they achieve. The houses, the cars, the titles, the applause, they may create a temporary sense of satisfaction, but they cannot answer the deeper questions of the soul. Who am I? Why am I here? What impact am I meant to make? These questions can only be answered when you understand that in Christ alone, true purpose is revealed, and that purpose goes beyond accumulation. It is about contribution, about living for something greater than yourself. Purpose transforms everything because it shifts your focus from getting to giving, from consuming to creating, from competing to serving. When your life is centered in Christ, you recognize that your gifts, your talents, your opportunities are not just for your own benefit, but for the upliftment of others. You stop seeing success as a personal trophy and start seeing it as a platform to bring value to the world. This doesn't mean material success is wrong. In fact, when aligned with divine purpose, success becomes a tool, a resource, a channel through which greater good can flow. Wealth, influence, and recognition are not the end goal, but instruments in the hands of those who understand that life is about impact, not just income. When you understand your purpose in Christ, you stop living reactively and begin living intentionally. Instead of being swayed by trends, pressured by comparison, or distracted by superficial pursuits, you become anchored in a mission that drives you forward with clarity. You know why you wake up in the morning. You know what you are building toward. You know the difference your presence is meant to make. That clarity removes confusion and gives energy. Many people feel drained not because life is too demanding, but because they lack alignment with purpose. Energy flows naturally when you are connected to something bigger than yourself, and in Christ that connection is constant, deep, and unshakable. Purpose also brings fulfillment that materialism can never provide. Think about it. How many people achieve worldly success only to realize they still feel dissatisfied, restless, or unfulfilled? That is because material success satisfies the surface, but leaves the soul hungry. Purpose, on the other hand, nourishes the deepest part of you. It gives meaning to your struggles, significance to your victories, and a sense of destiny to your daily actions. Even small tasks take on importance when they are tied to a larger vision. Cleaning, working, serving, creating, all become sacred when you know they are connected to a divine assignment. Living with purpose also changes how you view challenges. Without purpose, obstacles feel like setbacks that rob you of happiness. But with purpose, obstacles become part of the journey. Opportunities to grow, to strengthen, to refine. You begin to see that even difficulties are not wasted, that they shape you into someone capable of carrying greater responsibility. When your life is anchored in Christ's purpose, you no longer ask, "Why is this happening to me?" but instead, "What is this preparing me for?" That perspective alone turns burdens into blessings, pain into power, and delays into development. Another dimension of purpose is that it expands beyond self. True purpose always touches others. The talents you carry are not for you alone, they are meant to serve, to uplift, to inspire. Your story, your struggles, your victories, they are meant to become a testimony that guides someone else through their own journey. In Christ, purpose becomes an ever-expanding circle of influence, where your life begins to impact people you may never even meet directly. It might be through your work, your words, your kindness, or your example, but the ripple effect of purpose continues far beyond what you can see. Purpose also liberates you from the trap of comparison. When you know your assignment, you stop wasting energy trying to live someone else's life or achieve someone else's goals. You understand that your path is unique, your gifts are distinct, your calling is personal. Comparison leads to envy, frustration, and insecurity, but clarity of purpose leads to contentment, confidence, and joy. You no longer measure yourself by the world's standards, but by alignment with your divine mission. And in that space, peace and fulfillment flow abundantly. There is also a joy that comes from contribution. The human spirit thrives when it is giving, serving, uplifting. The more you give from a place of purpose, the richer you feel internally. This is why some of the most fulfilled people are not those who have the most, but those who give the most. Contribution brings a sense of expansion. It enlarges your heart. It awakens gratitude. It connects you to others in powerful ways. In Christ, contribution is not forced but flows naturally, because you understand that everything you have comes from Him and is meant to flow through you. Living beyond material success does not mean neglecting ambition or rejecting prosperity. It means aligning those ambitions with eternal principles. It means allowing prosperity to serve a higher purpose. It means recognizing that influence is a responsibility, that wealth is a tool, that opportunities are assignments. And when you live this way, success becomes sweeter because it is not empty but filled with meaning. Every victory, every accomplishment, every milestone is not just about what you achieved, but about who was touched, who was uplifted, who was transformed through your journey. That is when life feels rich in the truest sense, not because of what you accumulated, but because of what you gave, how you served, and the legacy you built through a life anchored in purpose. Living a victorious life is not about one moment of breakthrough. It is about cultivating a mindset and lifestyle where victory becomes your default posture. Too many people think victory is a destination, something that will happen one day when circumstances align, when all the struggles are over, when everything finally falls into place. But true victory in Christ is not postponed to some distant future. It is available daily, right now, in the way you choose to think, to act, to respond. It is not about waiting for external evidence of success before you feel triumphant. It is about knowing deep within that through Christ, the victory is already secured. That awareness transforms how you walk, how you speak, how you carry yourself, because you stop approaching life as if you are striving for victory and begin to live as someone who is operating from it. This kind of victorious living begins in the mind. Every battle starts internally, in the realm of thought, and the thoughts you entertain determine the life you create. If you constantly dwell on defeat, on fear, on limitations, then your life will reflect those beliefs. But when you renew your mind to align with the truth of who you are in Christ, you begin to think differently. You begin to replace doubt with confidence, fear with faith, weakness with strength. The inner dialogue shifts from, "I can't," to, "I already can." You start to see challenges not as roadblocks but as stepping stones, each one designed to elevate you to a higher level of strength and awareness. Victorious living is about mastering your inner world so that the external world does not dictate your identity or your potential. Victory also requires perseverance. A victorious life is not free from struggle. In fact, struggles often increase when you start to rise higher. But perseverance is the proof of victory because it shows that you are not defined by setbacks. When you are anchored in Christ, every challenge becomes temporary. Every obstacle becomes an opportunity. Every delay becomes a preparation for greater manifestation. Instead of quitting at the first sign of resistance, you push through, not with your own strength alone, but with the strength that flows through you. Perseverance builds character, and character sustains victory. Without perseverance, success can crumble, but with it, even in moments of apparent loss, you remain unshaken because you know loss is not the end of the story. A victorious life is also about perspective. Two people can face the same situation, but one sees defeat while the other sees possibility. The difference is not the circumstance, but the lens through which they view it. Living in Christ trains you to view every circumstance through the lens of victory. You begin to ask different questions, not, "Why is this happening to me?" but, "What is this preparing me for?" You stop magnifying problems and start magnifying the presence of the one within you. This perspective shift gives you power, because you realize nothing is wasted, and even the hardest seasons can become part of your triumph. Victorious living also expresses itself in action. It is not enough to simply believe you are victorious. You must walk it out. You must carry yourself with authority, make decisions with confidence, take steps with boldness. Too many people wait for feelings of confidence before they act, but action itself creates confidence. Each time you step forward in faith, you reinforce the truth of your victory. Each time you choose courage over fear, you grow stronger. Each time you refuse to give up, you prove to yourself that defeat is not an option. Over time, those actions accumulate into a lifestyle of victory, where momentum builds and the impossible begins to look possible. Another dimension of victorious living is gratitude. Gratitude keeps your focus on what is working, what is possible, what is already present, rather than on what is missing. A grateful heart is a powerful heart because it creates expansion. Gratitude turns ordinary moments into extraordinary ones. It shifts energy from lack to abundance. It opens your eyes to opportunities you might have overlooked. Living in gratitude is a form of victory because it keeps you above the weight of negativity and aligns you with the flow of blessing. You cannot be both deeply grateful and defeated at the same time because gratitude elevates your spirit and strengthens your faith. Victorious living is also about consistency. It is easy to feel victorious when life is going smoothly, but the true test comes in the mundane, in the daily routines, in the small choices no one else sees. Victory is cultivated in discipline, in choosing to stay aligned with your values, in guarding your thoughts, in showing up every day with determination. Consistency compounds, and what you repeatedly do becomes who you are. Small, consistent acts of faith, courage, and obedience create a life of victory, far more than one dramatic breakthrough ever could. There is also a joy that flows from living victoriously. Joy is different from happiness. Happiness depends on circumstances, but joy is rooted in something deeper. Joy is the confidence that no matter what comes, the outcome is already in your favor. Joy is the ability to smile in the middle of trials, to laugh in the face of adversity, to maintain lightness even when pressures surround you. That joy is contagious. It spreads to others, it lifts environments, it shifts atmospheres. Living with joy is a mark of victory because it shows that nothing external has the power to steal what is already secure within you. And perhaps the greatest mark of a victorious life is the influence it carries. When you live as if victory is your natural state, others notice. They see the peace, the strength, the resilience, the confidence, and they are drawn to it. Your life becomes a testimony that victory is possible, not just for some, but for all who choose to live anchored in Christ. It is not just about your own triumph, but about inspiring others to rise into their own. Victorious living multiplies, creating ripples that go far beyond your personal journey, touching lives, shifting mindsets, and influencing generations to believe that through Christ, every day can be lived in triumph.